follow that later on, different eras, different time periods. The second year, we begin to answer a lot of the questions that we set up in the first year, and we got a lot more monster activity. Because of that, we got a new monster that comes in with Kong and Godzilla. It's kind of what I love about the show is it's very big, it's very epic looking and feeling, and that's a unique opportunity too. Apple Plus does a wonderful job with creating the atmosphere that you need to have to fulfill the audience's wishes, and we do the best we can to follow up.
I know you did some training this morning for the pace car, so just how excited are you to lead the Field of Green this afternoon?
Well, it's fun for me. I used to race cars with my sisters, and my family raced seriously with quarter midgets and half midgets when we were young. I was fortunate enough to win a world's championship once when I was a kid. And it's always been big in our family, and the Daytona 500 has become a really, really cool event and something that's really fun. So I got to do my practice session this morning. Hopefully I'll be able to do exactly what I've been told to do, which is, hold a specific speed to set the tachometers on all the race cars. So I'm looking forward to it. Had a lot of fun this morning being on the track. It was a nice feeling to be on a racetrack again. And I'm looking forward to it. I think people are going to have a wonderful, hopefully the weather will hold for the day, and we'll have a good race.
Awesome. Well, we'll go ahead and open it up to media for questions. If you have a question, please raise your hand. We'll get a wireless microphone to you. We'll start with John right there.
John, you'll be fan buzz. Just kind of going back over here on your right.
There we go. Thank you.
No problem. Just kind of going back throughout your career, you've done a ton of Westerns. I was curious, obviously they're a blast to watch. What's the most appealing part of filming them?
Horses.
Fair enough.
I started early on. My dad's friends, all my dad's friends, my dad was, when he was working in the picture business, started off with in that time there were a lot of Westerns being done. So for me, starting at an early age, if you could do things on a horse, then they didn't need a double to double you. They could save money. So it gave you, a leg up on work. And yeah, Westerns was kind of also where I started. And it's the horses. When you learn to do stuff on a horse, you can get pretty handy with other things. So I really enjoyed that era. And I every once in a while, I think Westerns have to have a very unique and certain appeal. So I don't do a lot of them, but I think the ones that I do, I know I would like the audience to enjoy.
We'll go to Tim and then to Roy.
Right here, Tim Packman, HeavySports.com. As someone coming from someone who has a 6-foot Elvis Presley statue in their office, you've worked with Elvis, you've portrayed Elvis, you've portrayed Santa Claus, all the stuff you've done. If you ever look back on your career and go, all the cool stuff you've done, is there like a favorite that you just kind of sticks out?
I have mine. People on the street, have theirs. It's fun to see what theirs are. I don't really. One of the most difficult jobs I did was playing Elvis, because you're playing somebody that everybody knows. So you're in a kind of a box. But I've something that applies for today. Somebody once claimed in an article, Kurt Russell's career looks like it was guided by a drunken driver, and I was the drunken driver that guided it. So I just wanted to play different characters in different genres, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to do that. And when you're doing that, you try to create some memorable characters, and in movies that people really are going to have a good time watching. Now it's heavily it leans towards streamer work. They're doing some wonderful things, great writers, and kind of opening it up. I think one of the things about Monarch that's fun, like I said, it kind of has a big epic feel to it, and I think that's fun to bring to that venue. That's not the motion picture world. It's more of the television world. Yeah, I just keep trying to entertain with good stories, good characters, and I've had a good run.
We're going to go to Roy and then Lee and then Shane.
Thank you, Kurt.
Where are you, Roy?
Roy Akers, straight in front of you here.
Hey, Roy.
Skyview Sports. If you had a Hollywood project coming along and you were a retired superstar NASCAR driver and you could maybe mentor a younger type person, is there a driver or former movie character you play that you think that would make it a great role?
I'm not sure I understand your question right.
Well, if they came up with a movie script and said, Kirk, we'd like you to play a retired superstar driver and there's maybe a wayward younger driver we'd like you to play, is there kind of a driver or something like that
It's
you can
interesting.
think about?
Yeah, I've had that opportunity actually a couple of times. I'm tough on sports movies. I was a professional baseball player, and I've read many baseball stories. They're generally written by fans, not written by people who played the game. Ron Shelton's the exception to that. It would be the same with anything. I had a couple opportunities that I either couldn't do because of timing. I was working on something else, or I didn't really care for the project. I think that, to me, I used to race superboats, and like I said, I raced cars. I played baseball. I flew airplanes. I can't get past the feeling of if it doesn't feel authentic, if it just doesn't pass the smell test for me, I generally can't get very interested in it. So the determinant factor for me is always, how does this feel? Does it feel real? Is this something that's been written by somebody who knows what that world is? When you run into those, they're something you want to do. We did a lot of work on Miracle, for instance, to bring the authenticity of it by having hockey players instead of actors. For the most part, we had just a few actors in it as players. The director was an ex-D1 football player, so he understood high-level competition. And I think that when you have somebody leading the way, a director or writers who have lived it, it has a tendency to have a feeling of authenticity, and I think that's important with sports movies that deal in any way with sports movies. So I'd point towards that.
We're going to go to Lee, and then we'll go to Shane.
Lee Spencer, SiriusXM NASCAR Radio and CatchFence.com. I'm intrigued by your quarter midget background because, certainly you have a need for speed. Have you ever gotten that out of your system?
I don't have a need for speed. I like competition, and I love driving. I love flying. If it floats, flies, or runs on four wheels, I'm your boy. That's a world that I love. You want as much speed as you can get when you need it, but when you're racing, you need to race intelligently. You need to pace yourself. You need to know when to move, when not to move, and there's a lot of different factors involved there. Least of all, and probably most important, are the other competitors that you're running against. I just think that's what catches me. Is that feeling of, especially when you're running against the best. If you're running against really good people, whatever it is, you want to know how do you stack up? Can you win? I just find that endlessly fascinating. I'll be 75 next month, so my days of that are more appropriately spent as a pace car driver, right? So I with my family, I think I've tried to instill in them some of the understanding of the fun of that kind of competition and what it can mean to you, because you learn, as my father used to say, it's much tougher to be a good winner than it is a good loser. And when you run enough, in whatever the sport is, you learn to get back up after you've lost, try to get better. And when you win, be gracious.
We'll go to Shane.
Shane Whitehead, WFTV Orlando.
All right, Shane, okay.
The Winter Olympics are in progress. There's a new documentary out on the 1980 hockey team. Listening to some of the players, you really nailed Herb Brooks's persona. Did you get prep time with him? And the locker room speech, do you remember it?
Wrote a lot of it, so it was an interesting thing, actually. Herb Brooks was alive when we made this movie. The original screenplay needed a lot of work, and he was sort of just a Simon Legree. He didn't really have anything at stake. I learned a lot about it from Herb. Met with Herb because he was coming to scout my son Wyatt, who was playing in British Columbia. He was going to be looking at him for possibly going to Minnesota, playing for the Gophers. And when I met Herb, I learned a lot about what was not there. There was very little there for the games. But Wyatt had a coach, Paul Fricker, goaltending coach, who helped me transfer a lot of my understanding of what it could be through my life in baseball, translated into hockey. When I met Herb, I realized we had a lot of work to do. So did the director, and we went to work. When we finished the movie, it was the only time I also kind of kept myself removed from the other actors, or in this case, the hockey players who were playing the actors. I didn't want them to get too close to me. I didn't want them to feel that way because they didn't feel that way with Herb. And the nicest, or I don't know, for me, the best compliment I ever got as an actor, when we did the screening, the the premiere, Herb's family was there, and the lights went down and the show came on. And about 3 minutes into the movie, this little voice came out from the audience, and he went, "Papa!" And it was Herb's grandson. He was about 3 years old, I guess. And I knew then that I'd done something right. That was important to me, to get Herb right. As far as the speech is concerned, I had some information from Herb as to who he was. He was fascinated with how I understood so much. And I told him I played pro ball, and I just translated that with a hockey guy. Paul Fricker knew how to do that, so I had that great help. In the speech itself, I didn't want to violate Herb. I wanted to capture him, but didn't have the availability to do that. So I always figured that when the picture came out, if Herb saw it, I was either going to catch hell or whatever. And after it was over, and Herb had died before the movie came out. But a lot of the players came up and they said, "How did you the speech? How did you? It was almost verbatim." So I felt there was a little bit of a channeling understanding, of a person. My father, who was my main coach in baseball, he died while I was making Miracle, and I was on the ice, and I knew he was in the throes of dying soon. And I saw the first assistant skating out onto the ice, and I wanted to save him the difficulty of how do you open this conversation. I said, "Did my dad die?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay." And he said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I'm good. Give me 5 minutes." Last things my father had said to me was, I want to come down and see you, Dad." He said, "Why?" I said, "Because you're going to die, and I want to see you one more time before you leave." He said, "Oh, for Christ's sake, Wyatt's got a championship game to play. Stay there and watch the championship, And I said, "I just want to see that." He said, if we haven't said everything we have to say to each other by now, we blew it." And I said, "You're right." So I stayed and watched the last conversation I had with him on the phone where he couldn't really speak back. I said, "Don't try to talk, Dad. I know you can understand me." And I said, we won. We won the championship. And his last words to me were, "One more fucking championship." And I said, they won. So when I was skating around and my dad had died, I suddenly realized, I had never thought of it, but I was playing the psychology and the reality of a lot of what my father was. It just happened to be in line with who Herb Brooks was. Gives you an idea who my dad was. Herb was, I think, a very different type of person. My dad was quite gregarious, but he was very, very. He had a tremendous ability to tap into the psychologies of young men who wanted to do something, and I didn't realize it, but I was using that as much as I was the time that I spent with Herb. Anyway, that was where I kind of went with that.
All right, well, that's all the time we have, everyone. Kurt, thank you so much for coming in and spending some time with us this morning.
Have a fun day, guys. Thanks a lot.
Lead the field to green.
All righty.